Hello and good morning. It's Julie here, your host of Julie Davis Flower Workshops and Flower Start, the online flower arranging classes. You can really start to feel the autumn season arriving. Now we've just been away for the weekend. I know, 2 weekends running, very exciting. And as we were driving back along the motorway, the trees were really starting to change colour. They were absolutely beautiful, and I've had to commit it to memory because I tried taking a photograph as a passenger and everything just blurred together, but the yellows and the reds and the oranges are really starting to come through. And I was half tempted this morning to walk around the garden with bare feet. Good morning, Lady Mary Beth. I'm so honoured you joined me here. Fantastic. So, what is the weather like in Texas? I guess it's hot all year round, isn't it? It is decidedly cool here. So I've actually got a vest on, my shirt and my jumper as well. And I'm ashamed to say, Lady Mary Beth, that I got my washing out in the garden. And I never ever do that. But I came home from work yesterday and my husband was home and he put the wash out and he just announced, he said, all your clothes still on the line. I think you ought to bring them in. And I was just so tired. I just looked at him and I actually went to bed for 20 minutes and then got up again to get on. I just thought, I cannot be bothered to do that. So I was taking a huge risk because of course it's damp in the morning and also it's quite a fair chance it was going to rain. So yes, normally in the garden, everything like this is pushed the other way. But perhaps if I sit like this, I'll cover it up a little bit. So today's project is being inspired by those autumn colours that I saw in the motorway. I should say hello to Joan as well. So we have a real international contingent today, America and Ireland as well. So welcome one and all. So I thought I would go with those autumn colours and use that as an inspiration. And I'm just sort of moving around to this bit of the garden because this is where we've got our patch of dahlias, and there's got some quite yellow dahlias coming up. And I thought what I would do would be to zhuzh up. Oh gosh, hibiscus in full bloom. See, we can only dream about hibiscus here. I went to Brussels last weekend, Belgium last weekend, I should say. We went to the botanical gardens in Brussels, all the bees, and in the hothouses there were hibiscus, and that is the only time we ever see hibiscus is when we see it in the the tropical greenhouses. And I was saying to my friend that I've actually bought some hibiscus tea because I've been inspired by another YouTuber I think she lives in one of the Carolinas, and she was making iced tea, and with the weather being so unseasonably warm for us this summer, I thought I'd make some iced tea. So I went down to our local sort of herbalist health food shop, and she was recommending the hibiscus because it turned into a really bright red colour. So I have been drinking hibiscus tea, which I've been cooling down, and doing my own version of iced tea. But here in the UK, we don't drink iced tea. We always drink, as you Americans call it, hot tea. So if someone offers you a cup of tea, it is going to be made with a boiling water from the kettle, which we just call a kettle, not a tea kettle. It's all this different ways of using the same language. So I was making my hibiscus tea quite strong and then putting it in a lovely, I've got a glass teapot which I thrifted, absolutely beautiful, and then putting that in the fridge and watering it down with a pinch of baking powder, bicarbonate of soda, to take away the tannin taste of the tea. So when I was following, it was simply home with sherry, and I asked her, why do you put the pinch of bicarbonate of soda in? And she said she thought it was to take away the sort of tannin taste of the tea, the sort of acidicness. But I was using herbal tea, so I wasn't quite sure whether I should do that or not. And then I was making it up into a long cold drink by adding in sparkling water. And there's Mary Beth saying, is always iced tea in her part of the world because it's so warm. But they do say, our saying is, on a hot day, what you need is a really hot cup of tea to help you cool down. So a cup of tea solves everything, doesn't it? So I did enjoy, and that's the joy of YouTube, isn't it? Finding out how other people live, what the traditions are. But I will say, I have really enjoyed my iced tea. And if I wanted it a little bit sweeter, I went all cocktail crazy, and I put elderflower cordial in. Quite often, I make my own elderflower cordial in May time, but I didn't have enough time this year, and I actually bought a bottle when I went to one of my car boot fairs. There was a lady there selling homemade jams, and she bought made elderflower cordial as well. So I felt I needed a sweet pick-me-up. I made my little cocktail of hibiscus iced tea with a dash of elderflower, topped up with sparkling mineral water, and a long clean glass, not vintage though, it was a wedding present glass, and with one of my reusable stainless steel straws. So just making, as Mary Beth would say, elevating the everyday. So on to the flowers then. So here we are in the garden. I'm in the southeast of England, so we do tend to have warmer weather than the rest of the UK. About 50 miles from London, although it does take us forever to get to London on the train. It takes about an hour and 15 minutes. And today, if I'm really, really quiet, I quite like coming in the garden because it's just a moment to be quiet. But as I actually stop talking and listen, I can actually hear a police siren somewhere. And I think I can hear traffic. Now, we've got that motorway about a mile as the crow flies behind us. So although I don't feel I don't live near it, quite often we do hear this sort of low hum. And I can hear our next door neighbour has a little stream with a pumped lot of water, like a water feature in his garden. I can quite often hear that. And then the birds. Now, when we came home from our weekend away, we've got the pergola that I normally film under with a grapevine growing on it. And the noise from the birds was absolutely amazing. And my husband said he thought the birds were after the grapes. We never get any grapes to pick because, number one, it's not warm enough and our crop isn't big enough. But actually, it's all feeding the birds. So there you go. So on with the show. So this was an arrangement that I made in class last week. So I am back teaching Zoom flower class on, it's Tuesday today, at midday today. So that's a paid class, £150 for an 8-week session. You've missed the first week, but once you've paid your money, if you want to sign up for class, I will send you the recording for last week. So quite a lot of the people that sign up for class attend live, and quite often I've not met some of the people that come to class, because they always watch it on the recording. So I package up the video and it's published as a private video on YouTube, so you can't get general access to it. So this isn't what we made in Zoom Flower class. This is what we made in my live classes over in Canterbury. So Canterbury isn't very far away, and for all my international viewers, it's Canterbury Cathedral. It's a World Heritage World Heritage Site. So we're very lucky in the UK. Everything is steeped in loads and loads of history. So we're trying to go foam free as florists and flower arrangers, which means not using the flower foam, what you might know as Oasis. Other makes are available, because it's a single-use plastic and very damaging for the environment. And this has been quite difficult for a lot of people. I include myself in that, because flower foam was the miracle cure. You soak it in a bucket of water, it soaks up the water, you put it in a bucket of water and it soaks all that moisture up, and that's what keeps your flowers alive. And you can be very creative, and those of you who've ever been to flower shows or competitions will see not just conventional arrangements of the flowers all sticking up, but you also get them coming down at unnatural angles, because of course you couldn't arrange flowers upside down in a vase of water because all your water would fall out. But flower foam enables you to do lots of creative things. So it's becoming quite a difficult thing in the mindset term to realise that plastics, single-use plastics, aren't good for the environment. They're polluting our waterways and all that kind of thing. So trying to encourage my ladies to take that jump from using the flower foam that everyone's grown up with to going back to the old-fashioned ways of arranging flowers. So in class, I thought I can't be shocking too much. So I did one sample arrangement using flower foam, and then I made this arrangement showing how you could use the same principles in flower arranging to do something that wasn't in flower foam. And the time has now come, as you can see. Some of the things are dying, going over, as we euphemistically call it. So I had a combination here of flowers from the supermarket and also flowers from my garden. So I've got zinnias here, have gone over a little bit, and my dahlias have gone over. And then, that is an aster that's come from the supermarket, which I think I might put back in. It's not looking too bad. So that's my job for this morning, is to take out the dead stuff and replenish with fresh stuff from the garden. So everything looks a little bit lonely once you take stuff out of the arrangement. I don't actually have roses and gerberas growing in my garden. They are from a supermarket bunch. So having taken the dead stuff out and the loose stuff, I then need to tip away the water. So whenever you have flowers at home, you should be recutting your stems. Even if you're just cutting and plonking, putting in a vase, unwrap your flowers. If you keep them in the plastic wrapper, plastic again, they all sweat and start to rot off. So you need to take them out of that plastic wrapping, recut the stems at an angle, and put fresh, clean water into your very clean vase and arrange your flowers. But every few days, you need to refresh the water. So you need to tip the water away, recut the stems and add fresh water. And it's a bit difficult to do if you're trying to sort of lengthen the life of your flowers if you've got something that is absolutely pre-arranged. And the beauty here is, because this is water, if I'm just very careful and I hold it, I could tip my water away like that. Oh, I found another dead flower. And then I could add fresh water to replenish. So let's see if I can do this. I could actually put that down, hold it more steadily. So I've just got my milk carton cut down. Again, it's plastic. Everything's plastic, isn't it? Do you remember the days of when, did you ever have, milk in glass bottles? So when we were growing up, we always had the milkman come to our house. And I am one of a large number of children. And my mum used to get through about 7 pints of milk a day. And I can remember at Christmas time, instead of putting the pints out to see us through the Christmas period, the milkman used to leave the huge crates that the milk was delivered in outside the front door. So yes, much of my childhood was spent rinsing out milk bottles and then putting them back on the doorstep for the milkman to come. The ultimate recycling, wasn't it? Why did all that stop? And in fact, over the years, we have gone back to getting our milk delivered because I thought it would be better for the environment, and specifically chose a milk delivery service that used bottles, and then they changed to plastic. Well, if you're going to get plastic, you might as well go to the supermarket, because you do pay over the odds to get your milk delivered, because of course you're paying someone to do that for you. So my flowers are ready to go, in the sense that I've refreshed the water, I've taken out the dead bits, but now I thought I would come round and cut. So the sort of creation over there, my husband's quite into livestock in a small sense. His father had a very large allotment when they grew up, and they always had all sorts of rabbits and chickens and things like that. So we've got the same going on here. Originally, when my daughter was very little, she had rabbits one year, which I think were more of a gift to my husband than my daughter. And he's built this super deluxe rabbit hutch, which is very tall. Well, it's 2-story, and if you ever see him in real life, he will give you the full details on how much space your rabbits need. They shouldn't be in those tiny hutches. It's not very kind to them. So these rabbits that we had the deluxe living accommodation. Right, I'm going to come right down into here, trying to pick my flowers that have got that sort of quintessential autumn colouring. So Mary Beth, if you're still watching, I'd love to know more about pumpkins. You go pumpkin crazy. So we don't do that here, and I'm very envious. I think my perfect house would be one with the wraparound porch, which just isn't the design of houses here in the UK. And when we talk about our porches in the UK, it's the front door with perhaps a little canopy over the top, and there isn't that space. There isn't that tradition of decorating with pumpkins for Halloween or the autumn season, however you prefer to decorate for. So we have always carved pumpkins, although my mum said that when she was little, we didn't carve pumpkins. It was turnips that they carved as children, which were really, really hard. So we are getting now, we do have pumpkin fields. It's quite exciting, quite a new phenomenon for us, where you can go out and pick your own pumpkins and all the speciality pumpkins, but it still isn't a really big thing for us. And we don't really eat pumpkins or squashes. You'll have roasted squash in some of the cookery programmes here, but we don't eat them. But that's what I would love. I would love to have a huge porch with a rocking chair, stacks and stacks of pumpkins. It just seems so lovely. I'm going to cut here some fennel. So definitely trying to take that arrangement from all those hot pinks of last week to just what I've got in my garden. And as I always say in my garden, we have hardly anything in it. My husband is the gardener. So I could, if I do that, we can get less washing if I just move around a little bit. So my husband gardens, primarily he gardens for wildlife. So he's very keen on, you notice my dahlias, that they're not the really full and fancy variety because the insects can't get in to pollinate. So with the more beautiful, more florist varieties and the huge pom-poms, they're not very good for wildlife. So everything in the garden is wildlife determined, really. So he's rather proud of that, and he's won prizes for his garden. So it's not full of flowers, which is always a bit ironic because people assume that I am a gardener and I've got a huge garden to arrange my flowers from, which isn't true. So these little bits have fallen out from last week. So what I'm going to do is recut the stem. So ideally everything should have a stem recut. Pumpkin flavoured everything. Yes, wide porches and historic homes. Absolutely gorgeous. So I have been to America. I know you're a fan of Europe here, Mary Beth. So I spent my honeymoon in New York. Well, a weekend of my honeymoon in New York. And my husband bought tickets to see, what did he buy tickets to see? Oh, the really big musical. Oh gosh, Les Miserables. And I slept all the way through it. I was so exhausted. I slept all the way through it. We did see Julie Andrews coming out of the stage door of the production she was in. And I can't remember the name of it, what she was in now. Because Mary Beth, we got married in the same year, I believe. And then I have also been to, flew with a boyfriend. We flew into Orlando, Florida, and then hired a car. And I think we discovered that we weren't, after the end of the holiday, discovered we weren't supposed to take the car out of state. And we drove. We went to, I can't remember the name now. Is it Natchez? We went to Mississippi, through Baton Rouge, Mississippi. I can remember going to a bar in Mississippi and the band, it was around my birthday, and the band played a song for me, which was very exciting. Drinking hurricanes, and now you don't, it's weird, and you had to have them, you could drink them in the street, but you had to have them in a brown paper bag. So I can remember bringing home this huge glass of Yes, that's it. I went to all the historic homes there, all gone with the wind. Absolutely beautiful, absolutely beautiful. Oh wow, it's so nice to share some memories. And then also, we have a friend who lived in the UK, and she was American, and she lived in Los Angeles, because I've learned to say it's Los Angeles, not Los Angeles, as we would say it, here in the UK. So we went to visit friends in New Zealand, and we went the wrong way around and stayed in Los Angeles with her and got shown around. So really a fabulous experience being shown around by somebody who is local. So it makes, I think, my default setting. Oh, perhaps that's where I went, Mary Beth, the Pat O'Brien's. Yes, I'll have to look that up and see whether that's where I went. I think we just missed Mardi Gras. So, it was lovely. And then we had such a good time that night. We stayed in a really nice hotel. And then you know what you do when you finish, and I don't know about you, but I sort of make a point of pulling all the covers back so that the bed has a chance to air. And in doing so, I had forgotten that I'd left something on the bed. One of my favourite dresses or skirts, I can't remember what it was now. And I just remember, we left. We left with very large headaches and leaving items of clothing behind. Happy days. And I'm sure if I reminisce that, actually wasn't, I was going to say if I reminisce that with my husband, he wouldn't remember. But he wouldn't remember because it wasn't him that I went with. So what I'm doing here, I'm not thinking about it really, because the flowers are beautiful. Oops. I'm just looking for a gap where I'm going. And what I always do is that when you've got your flowers where you're going to go, that's the opportunity to really give it a little primp and preen. Now you'll see what the only hazard of arranging flowers in water is that as soon as you move the dish, it's going to spill. And I've been keeping these flowers on our kitchen table because it looks pretty, but we eat our meals at the kitchen table, so every time we sit down this will get shuffled out of the way for everything to fit on. And depending on who's doing the shuffling and who's remembered that these flowers are in water, there's been a trail of water across the kitchen table. So that's the only downside, is that you're picking these pretty bowls, but they don't have a very big reservoir of water. And then even if you've remember to top up your water every few days, there's just that spillage factor. Now this is absolutely gorgeous. So the little insignificant fennel with the lovely aniseedy scent. When on the subject of teas, I have previously saved the seed heads. Look at that. So all nice, and it's nice to have. What we're always looking for in our flower arranging is a little bit of natural movement. So the flowers, they're sitting in that bowl. The bowl's quite heavy, they're quite solid, and it's nice to have something sometimes that just waves or sits up a little bit ahead. And I just spilt more water doing that as well. But sometimes you don't want to go too tall, it's got to be in proportion. So I quite like that, but actually I think it's going to be too tall. So I need to cut it low like that, or cut the wafy bit off, and I might cut that off and cut that a bit shorter. And then when I put them back together, I can sort of put them together, but they're both made a little bit shorter. So where am I going to go with that? I feel that my flowers don't really have a focal point. That where my rose was originally, I'm not sure you can see it, down here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that yellow, that eye-catching yellow dahlia, and reposition that down towards the middle, just so it is more eye-catching. And then I might just shuffle that one round because they're too close together, like that. So I want my eye to land on that one there, like that. And then my last few little bits, always nice to have flowers that are in full bloom, in bud and pot open. So we've got the dahlias there, and it just gives that whole sense. You've got that whole life cycle of flowers going on at once. So this is, talking about life cycle of flowers. I think autumn's my favourite time of the year, when you get all the seed heads, the poppy seed heads. You're noticing the berries that in the hedgerows. So rose hips, beautiful. The only thing about rose hips and blackberries and hedgerows, they look absolutely beautiful, glistening in the autumn sunlight as you go for a walk, but they are totally 100% impractical for putting in your flower arrangement, because both of them are quite prickly, and as soon as you get them indoors, the fruit ripens and falls off, and then you end up with squashed berries all over the place. And also, if you've got children in the house, it's just not a very good idea to have the berries around. Although both are edible, I just like to draw a line between what's in the fruit bowl and what's in my flower arrangement, and we don't eat the flower arrangements at home. So I've just got a couple of bits of eucalyptus that have fallen out. So as I'm arranging, I've sort of been doing it from above, so I always take the opportunity of, when I've finished my flower arrangement, to put it where it's going to go and have a proper look. So I would put it on my kitchen table, do all my tidying around, and then if anything needs tweaking, I can tweak that. And if you are new to flower arranging, I always suggest you take a photograph, because it's quite nice to have a record of what you've been doing, and just it'll show you that you've learnt and developed your own skill over time. So I can remember very proudly taking photographs of the first flower arranging course I did shortly after I got married in '95, and I thought I thought these arrangements were the absolute bee's knees. And then every few years I find my little album of pictures, because those are the days when we printed things out and put them into albums, and I just have a right old laugh to myself because they're absolutely hideous. So it's just really nice to have a look, to to see where you started and where you are now. And it also is quite helpful as well. If you take a photograph, sometimes you end up with, because you're looking at a photograph in 2D, your eye can sometimes taking a picture can direct you as to where the imperfections are in your arrangement. So sometimes I might take a photograph and then think, oh, I can sort of see a gap in the photograph I couldn't see in real life. So and then it just means if you want, to strive for perfection, you just need to reposition your flowers a little bit, and you can do that quite easily. The only thing is, if you start, taking loads of flowers out and putting them back in again, you run the risk that they're going to get knocked and damaged because they are quite delicate, and you just don't want to be damaging the stems. But certainly, don't think that once they're done they have to stay like that. And over the course of the next week, or however long these flowers last, I'll continue picking out the dead bits and then replenishing it. Or it'll get to the stage where you just think, well, I've seen this arrangement hanging around the house for 2 weeks, I'm fed up with it now, and I would just take it all apart. And then what I do is I have a compost bucket. So we do have a compost heap, I'm struggling for words there, in the garden. But just the way things are, because I use lots of woody stems, my husband doesn't like me to put the woody stems on the compost heap because they don't rot down. So actually all my floristry waste goes into the brown bin that the council takes away, and it goes to the commercial composting site, where I guess they do whatever they need to do to rip it down to make it into compost. So I'm probably going to leave that there then. A little bit of a chat. Nice to reminisce about trips to America and iced tea. I've also got a recipe book thinking about that. We went, I can't remember, it was one of the Carolinas, north or south, can't remember where, but there was a famous restaurant, and it was like the grandmother that cooked. And I bought her recipe book, and because I went there with an old boyfriend, I think she's inscribed in it, so it seems really weird. I've got a cookbook with someone else's name in it. So if I can remember where that is, I'm pretty sure it might be still in my recipe book shelf. So I might take a photograph of it and put it in the community tab, Mary Beth, and if you know who it is, it'd be nice to share some reminiscences again. So I'm going to leave it there and say, here is today's arrangement. Now, first thing that's troubling me about this arrangement, can you see this stem here is quite a lot of eye travelling down the stem, so really I have these to be pushed in a little bit more or made shorter. It's just coming out a little bit too far, so I will just take the stem, just cut off a little bit. I'm going for about 1.5 centimetres, putting it back in exactly the same place, but it's just like, and now it's sitting directly underneath that one. Mind you, that might be the camera line. I don't like my flowers to be sort of ended like that. I think I might come in and cut it again. And now you can see why flower arranging can take so long. But you don't need to fuss and fiddle quite so much. But I think that's better there. So you don't get that exposure, that length of naked stem to look at, but also there's a little bit of, recession, different lengths between the flowers, which makes it more visually appealing. And I haven't done a flower arrangement, it's just been roundy-moundy, because these are primarily garden flowers. I've gone for that very naturalistic look, which actually is very much in vogue at the moment, as the florists, certainly here in the UK, are embracing going back to using pin holders and chicken wire, which are my mechanics too, rather than using the flower foam. So it's all about using the natural stem length, instead of when you go to the supermarket and you buy 10 roses and they're all exactly the same size and the same length. With garden flowers and the whole movement for grown and not flown, it's all about the differences. Oh, I just missed your comment there, Mary Beth. I will have to have a look at that later. But yes, I think you were saying post a photo of the recipe book, so I will do that. So I shall say goodbye and see you again next week. So where am I going to be this week? So at 12 noon today, so in just a few short hours, we'll be going live from my kitchen. It's starting to rain here, so I'm quite live. I'm glad I'm filming indoors this morning. So those classes are available for you to book onto if you're interested in booking. I've also got all the back editions of my Zoom flower classes, and you can buy those just as the recorded videos, and they are in the shop section of my website, which is juliedavisflowerworkshops.co.uk, and you'll normally find a link to that in the show notes underneath the video. And then on a Friday lunchtime at about 12 o'clock, I tend to go live in my free Facebook group, Flower Start World. So I think at the moment there's about 500 plus in there. So you're always welcome to join. And that is the really good place because we can really have a proper conversation there. You can post your photographs, get advice on your flowers, and just admire everyone else's creativity. And hopefully that will inspire you too. So I'm going to, fortunately, I don't have to take my washing in because it's not dry, but if it's going to rain, I might have to. Oh no. There's nothing worse, is there, than the emergency dash bringing in the washing. I'm secretly hoping, like the washing up fairy comes, that somebody else is going to sort that washing out, and I've already done all the hand washing. And because I've had my nails done, I've even put on my rubber gloves this morning and then struggled out of them. So I'm trying to get this manicure to last. So it's a week old today, so I'm feeling very proud of that. So enough of the waffling. I shall say goodbye. Catch up with you Tuesday today, next week. Oh, say it again, Julie. Today, Zoom flower class. Friday at noon in the Facebook group, and then back here at about 8:15 a.m. on Tuesday morning. Of course, that's my time. Might not necessarily. And of course, with Mary Beth, not your time at all. I'm trying to work out, Mary Beth, that you are behind. I don't know, it's just too complicated, isn't it? So I think I'll probably just get up and say goodbye.